A rich cowboy walked past a beggar. Then his son whispered, "Father, that's Ma." The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fresh hay from the ranch, and Jack breathed deeply, feeling the calm settle over him. He was a man known to everyone in town, a rich cowboy with a reputation for success, hard work, and determination. Yet there was something about him that made people keep a respectful distance. He was strong, confident, and decisive, but his heart seemed guarded, as if he carried a secret no one could reach. The ranch he owned was vast, stretching across the rolling hills and wide meadows. Cattle grazed peacefully under the watch of a few loyal ranch hands. Jack's days often started before dawn, ensuring that every corner of the ranch was in order. He had built his wealth from the ground up, starting as a boy with nothing but a small piece of land, a worn-out horse, and dreams that seemed too big for his tiny town. People admired him for it, calling him a self-made man, a figure of strength and perseverance. But while he had gained respect and riches, Jack had also lost something along the way, a warmth in his life, a closeness he could not buy. Riding into town today, Jack's boots struck the stirrups in a steady rhythm. His son Tommy rode beside him, swinging his legs over the side of his small pony. Tommy was 7 years old, curious and full of energy, with wide eyes that seemed to take in everything. He admired his father, though sometimes he noticed the moments when Jack's eyes drifted, as if he were remembering something he didn't want to forget. "Dad," Tommy called, pointing toward a small shop, "can we stop there? I want to see the horseshoes they have." Jack shook his head, a soft smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Not today, son. We have work to do back at the ranch. Maybe tomorrow." His voice was calm, measured, carrying the authority of a man used to making decisions. Tommy pouted slightly but didn't argue. He trusted his father, even if he sometimes wished Jack would slow down and notice the smaller moments in life. The town was waking up slowly. A few shopkeepers were setting up their stands, arranging fruits and vegetables neatly, and sweeping the dust from their doorsteps. Children ran through the streets, laughing and chasing each other, while horses clopped along the cobblestones, their riders heading toward the outskirts. Jack nodded politely to a few people as they passed, but he did not stop to chat. There was always a sense of urgency in him, a need to move forward, to make sure everything he had worked for stayed secure. Tommy, however, noticed the people around them differently. He had a keen eye, a sensitivity that made him aware of those who often went unnoticed. He noticed the old man sitting on the bench near the fountain, who waved a friendly hand but received no answer. He noticed the children in worn clothes playing near the market, smiling despite having little. And then his eyes landed on something, or rather someone, that made him pause. A woman sat on the edge of the street, her clothes tattered and faded. She had a shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders, though it did little to hide the thinness of her frame. Her hair, once surely dark, was now streaked with gray and tangled in a way that suggested long days without care or comfort. Her hands, resting on her knees, were worn and cracked from years of labor, or perhaps hardship. She held a small, faded cloth bundle close to her chest, and her eyes, though tired and weary, stayed fixed on the ground. Tommy's heart skipped a beat. He nudged his father gently. "Dad, look." Jack's head turned, following Tommy's finger, but his eyes swept quickly over the woman and moved on. He saw only another poor soul, another face among many. But Tommy didn't look away. Something deep inside him stirred, a memory he couldn't quite name. That's Ma," he whispered almost to himself. Jack stopped mid-step, his horse coming to a halt. He frowned slightly, confused by the words. "What did you say, Tommy?" His voice was gentle but carried a tone of caution. Children often said things without understanding, and Jack didn't want to jump to conclusions. Tommy pointed again, more insistently this time. "Father, that's Ma. I think it's her." Jack's gaze returned to the woman, this time more closely. He felt an unfamiliar tightness in his chest, a stirring of emotions he had long buried. The woman looked smaller than he remembered, and time had etched lines on her face that hadn't been there before. He couldn't be sure. Could it really be her? Jack's mind flashed back to a time many years ago. A young woman, full of life and laughter, had shared his dreams and his struggles. She had stood by him when they had almost nothing, when the land was rough and the cattle were few. But life had pulled them apart. Circumstances, pride, misunderstandings, it had all led to separation. She had disappeared from his world, and in his grief, he had thrown himself into work, into building his ranch, and into the life he now led. Yet he had never truly forgotten her. The woman lifted her head slightly, her eyes catching the sunlight. Jack felt a jolt of recognition. There was something in the curve of her jaw, the shape of her eyes, the subtle expression that had been so familiar. His heart began to race, a mix of hope, fear, and disbelief. Could it really be her after all these years? His mind spun with questions, with memories, with regrets he thought he had left behind. Tommy's small hand tightened on the reins of his pony. "Dad, please, look at her. She's the one you always talk about. The one you missed." His voice was innocent, yet filled with a clarity that only a child could have. He didn't understand the complexities of adult life, but he saw what his father could not, or perhaps what his father refused to see. Jack swallowed hard, his throat dry. He felt the years of separation, of lost moments and unspoken words pressing down on him. The world around him seemed to blur as he stared at the woman. The market noises, the clap of hooves, the laughter of children, all faded into the background. All he could see was her, sitting quietly, a figure of endurance and quiet strength. He dismounted slowly, his boots crunching against the gravel. Tommy followed, his small steps light and eager. Jack approached cautiously, unsure what he would say, unsure how she would react. The woman didn't flinch, didn't cry out. She simply watched him, her eyes narrowing slightly as if trying to remember something familiar. Jack stopped a few feet away, unsure if he should speak. His voice, when it came, was low and hesitant. Do I know you?" The words felt strange, awkward, but necessary. He could see the shadow of recognition in her eyes, and that gave him hope. The woman's lips trembled, and she nodded slowly. "Jack, is it really you?" Her voice was weak but carried the weight of years, of stories untold, of hardships endured. Jack's heart ached as he heard her speak his name. It was a name that had been lost in his memories, yet it came alive in her voice, bridging the gap between the past and the present. Tommy stood between them, his eyes wide with wonder and a sense of rightness. He didn't fully understand the pain of the years gone by, but he knew something beautiful was happening, something important. He looked up at his father and whispered, "See, Dad, I told you it's Ma." Jack nodded slowly, unable to speak for a moment. The past and the present collided in a swirl of emotions. He had built a life, yes, but the woman before him was a part of his story he could never erase. And now, after all the years, she was here, real, alive, and waiting. He reached out a hand, slowly, carefully. I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice cracking. "I never thought I'd see you again." The woman's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and she extended her own hand, hesitant but trusting. Tommy grinned, a bright smile that broke through the tension in the air. "See, Dad, everything's going to be okay," he said, his small voice full of faith and innocence. Jack looked down at his son and then back at the woman, feeling something stir in his chest, a mix of hope, fear, and the possibility of healing. And in that quiet moment, in the soft morning light of the town square, Jack realized that life had brought them back together for a reason. The journey ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in many years, he felt the possibility of something he had long forgotten: family, forgiveness, and the chance to make things right. The morning sun had climbed higher, casting long, warm shadows over the cobblestone streets of the small town. Jack stood frozen for a moment, his hand barely brushing hers, feeling the weight of years that had passed between them. His heart raced in a way it hadn't for a long time, hope, fear, and guilt all mixed into a tight knot in his chest. Tommy watched closely, his small hand gripping the reins of his pony, full of curiosity and excitement, but also sensing the seriousness of the moment. Jack finally broke the silence, his voice low, almost a whisper. I don't understand. Why are you here?" His words stumbled over themselves, betraying the confusion that roiled inside him. The woman who had once been the center of his world looked up slowly, her eyes soft yet strong, carrying a history of pain and survival. "I had no choice, Jack," she said softly. Her voice was rougher than he remembered, shaped by years of struggle, yet it still had the warmth that had once drawn him in. "Life, it didn't make it easy for us. You left and I had to find a way to survive." Her gaze flicked toward Tommy, who stood between them, wide-eyed and innocent. "And I had to take care of him." Jack's mind spun. His eyes darted from her to Tommy, who was smiling faintly, sensing the connection but not fully understanding it. He knelt slightly to meet his son's gaze. "You knew?" he asked quietly. Tommy nodded, as if confirming something obvious. "Yes, Dad," Tommy said softly, almost reverently. "I've known for a long time. I had to wait for the right moment to tell you." His small voice carried a sense of certainty that Jack couldn't ignore. Jack's heart ached. How had he missed this? How had he not seen the signs sooner? He looked at the woman again, noticing how time and hardship had shaped her face, making her stronger in some ways and more fragile in others. He remembered the days when she had laughed freely, when the world seemed wide open and full of possibilities. And now she sat before him, carrying years of experience, hardship, and quiet strength. "I don't know what to say," Jack admitted, his voice breaking slightly. "I never wanted this." His hands fell to his sides. "I never wanted to lose you, and I never knew." The woman shook her head gently. "Jack, don't say that. We both made choices, even if we didn't understand them at the time. Life happened. And we survived." There was a sadness in her eyes, a sadness that reflected the years she had spent alone, raising a child without the support she once had hoped for. Jack's gaze softened as he looked at Tommy again. "He's my son." The question was simple, but the weight behind it was enormous. The woman nodded. "Yes, Jack, he is your son. I didn't know how to tell you or if I should. I wanted him to know his father, but I also had to protect him." Tommy stepped forward, a small hand reaching for Jack's. "I wanted you to know, Dad. I wanted you to meet her. I wanted you to see Mom." He looked between them, his eyes shining with hope. "She's amazing, Dad. She's been through so much." And she waited. Jack's chest tightened. The boy's words struck him deeply, piercing through the years of distance and denial. He remembered the promises he had made, the dreams he had shared, and the way life had pulled them apart. He felt the weight of his choices pressing down on him, the consequences of leaving when he thought he had no other option. I can't believe it," Jack whispered, his hand finally brushing against hers again. He felt the roughness of her skin, the evidence of years spent surviving, and it made his heart ache even more. I never thought I'd see you again. Not like this." The woman's lips curved into a faint smile, though her eyes were misty with unshed tears. "Life has a way of bringing people back, Jack. Sometimes when we least expect it, sometimes when we need it most." She paused, looking at Tommy with warmth. "And sometimes it gives us a chance to fix what was broken." Jack swallowed hard, his mind racing. He remembered the past, the arguments, the misunderstandings, the moment when life had torn them apart. He remembered leaving, thinking it was the only way to secure a future for himself, for the ranch, for the life he dreamed of building. And now, standing here, he realized how much he had lost in the process. Tommy tugged gently at his sleeve. "Dad, can we talk to her? Like really talk? I think she wants to." His voice was soft, innocent, and full of encouragement. Jack nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. He knelt down to be at eye level with Tommy. "All right, son, let's do that." He turned to the woman, his eyes searching hers for any sign of anger or resentment. Instead, he found patience, resilience, and a quiet strength that made him both nervous and hopeful. "Can we sit?" he asked softly. The woman nodded, and together they moved to a nearby bench, the sun warming their backs as they settled into an uneasy but hopeful truce. For a few moments, neither spoke. The sounds of the town filled the space between them, the laughter of children, the clop of hooves on cobblestones, the calls of shopkeepers preparing for the day. And yet, in that moment, none of it mattered. All that mattered was the woman in front of him and the son he had never truly known until now. Finally, Jack broke the silence. I don't even know where to start. How have you been? How did everything happen?" His questions tumbled out, desperate to understand, to bridge the gap of years lost. The woman took a deep breath, her hands folded in her lap. "It hasn't been easy, Jack. I worked, I struggled, I raised Tommy alone. There were days I didn't know where the next meal would come from. Nights I prayed that someone, anyone, would notice us, would help us. And then I learned to be strong for him, for survival. I never stopped thinking about you." "Never." Her voice wavered slightly, but there was conviction in her words. Jack felt his chest tighten. Guilt, shame, and regret washed over him in waves. He remembered the times he had thought of her, of the dreams they had shared, of the life he had imagined for them both. And now, seeing her here, he realized how much time had been lost, how many moments, how many years had slipped through his fingers. I didn't know," he whispered. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was protecting us." His voice faltered, choked by emotion. "But I see now, I see what I lost, I see what I left behind." The woman reached out, her hand brushing his lightly. "Jack, we can't change the past, but we can try to make the future better for us. For Tommy." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, but there was a strength there that matched his own longing. "We can start again slowly, one step at a time." Tommy smiled, a small, hopeful expression that lifted the heaviness in the air. "See, Dad, she's right. We can fix it. We can be a family." His voice carried a sense of certainty that only a child could have, and Jack felt a warmth he hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, Jack allowed himself to hope. He looked at the woman again, really looked, taking in the strength and resilience in her eyes, the love that had endured despite everything. And he knew deep in his heart that this moment, this unexpected reunion, was the beginning of something important. Something that could heal old wounds, bridge years of separation, and bring a family back together. The woman finally spoke again, her voice softer now, filled with a quiet determination. "Jack, there's so much to talk about. So many stories to share, so many years to understand. But right now, let's just start here, with this moment, with us." Jack nodded, swallowing hard, feeling tears prick at the corners of his eyes. He reached out again, taking her hand gently in his. "Yes, let's start here." And in the middle of the town square, amidst the rising activity of the day, a man, a woman, and a child began to rediscover each other. The past was heavy, yes, but the present, this present, offered hope. It offered a chance for healing, for understanding, and for the family they had once dreamed of becoming. For Tommy, it was the happiest morning of his life. For Jack, it was a moment of reckoning, a chance to face the mistakes of the past and make amends. And for the woman, it was a reminder that even after years of struggle, life could still bring unexpected joy, and that love, true love, could survive the harshest trials. As they sat together on the bench, the sunlight warming their backs and the sounds of the town humming around them, each of them realized the same thing. This was not the end. It was a beginning. And beginnings, no matter how long delayed, were worth every moment of waiting. The morning had fully settled over the town now, and the streets were alive with the rhythm of daily life. Shopkeepers called out to customers, children laughed as they played near the fountain, and the soft clop of horse hooves echoed along the cobblestones. But for Jack, the world around him seemed to fade into a blur. His mind, his heart, and his eyes were fixed on the woman sitting beside him. The woman he had loved so deeply and lost so painfully. He studied her carefully, noticing the changes that time had brought. Her hair, once dark and full of life, was now streaked with silver and carefully tied back. Her face bore lines that had not been there before, each telling a story of hardship, worry, and endurance. But despite it all, there was a strength in her eyes that reminded him of the woman he had first fallen in love with, a woman who had once dreamed of a life together with him, who had shared his hopes and fears. Jack started, then stopped. His throat felt tight and the words seemed inadequate for the flood of emotions rushing through him. I don't even know where to begin. So much time has passed, and I missed it all. He looked down at Tommy, who stood quietly by the bench, sensing the weight of the moment. I missed you both. I thought I was doing the right thing back then, but I see now that I was wrong. The woman's eyes softened, though a shadow of pain lingered. Jack, we both had our paths to follow. You built a life and I had to survive. We did what we had to do. But yes, it hurt. It hurt every single day. She paused, taking a deep breath as if gathering courage to speak more. I never stopped thinking about you, and I never stopped hoping you would somehow find your way back. Jack swallowed hard, his chest tightening. He had carried guilt like a weight for years, telling himself that the choices he made were necessary, that he had no other options. But seeing her here, hearing her voice, feeling the truth in her words, he realized how heavy his mistakes had been, not just for him, but for her, for Tommy, for the family they could have had. Tommy, sensing his father's turmoil, stepped forward, tugging lightly at Jack's sleeve. "Dad, it's okay," he said gently. "She's here. That's what matters now. We can start again." His words were simple, but they carried a wisdom beyond his years. He looked up at Jack with trust and hope, and it stirred something deep inside the man. Jack turned his gaze back to the woman. "Start again, yes, but I don't even know how to do that. So much has happened and I've been gone for so long. I don't know if you can ever forgive me." His voice wavered, carrying the pain of years lost, the longing for connection, and the fear that it might be too late. The woman reached out slowly, placing her hand on his. Her touch was gentle, yet it carried a strength that seemed to anchor him. "Jack, forgiveness isn't about forgetting or pretending nothing happened. It's about acknowledging the past and choosing to move forward. And I want to try. For Tommy, for us. But we must be honest and we must take it one step at a time." Jack nodded, swallowing hard. He could feel tears prickling his eyes, and for a moment he let himself be vulnerable. He thought of the years he had spent building his ranch, accumulating wealth and keeping himself busy, thinking it would fill the emptiness inside. But nothing had filled it. Nothing had replaced the love he had lost. And now, faced with her again, he understood that wealth and success could never make up for what truly mattered: family, connection, and love. I never wanted to hurt you," he whispered. "I thought I was protecting us, but I see now that I failed. And I'm so sorry." His voice cracked and he swallowed again, trying to steady himself. "I want to make it right. I don't know how, but I want to try." The woman's eyes softened even more and she gave a small nod. "Jack, that's all I needed to hear, that you want to try. That you care. We can figure the rest out together." She looked at Tommy, who smiled and reached out to take her hand. "Tommy, you've grown so much. You're strong, brave, and kind. Your father and I will need your help to become a family again. Can you help us?" Tommy grinned, nodding enthusiastically. "Yes, I've been waiting for this for so long. I want us to be a real family all together." His small voice was full of joy and certainty, and for the first time in years, Jack felt hope blooming inside him. The woman smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "Then we have our first step," she said gently. "Let's just be here together and start to talk, to understand each other again. No rush, no pressure, just connection." Jack nodded, taking a deep breath. He felt a strange mix of nervousness and relief. He had imagined this moment countless times, but never like this. never with the possibility of rebuilding rather than just remembering. He realized that the hardest part wasn't finding her. It was learning how to reconnect, how to face the consequences of their past choices, and how to take small steps toward healing. They began to walk slowly through the town square, Jack's hand brushing hers from time to time, Tommy walking beside them, asking questions about everything he saw. "Mom, what was it like before you met Dad? What did you do when he was gone? Did you miss him?" His voice was filled with innocent curiosity, and both adults laughed softly, the tension easing just a little. The woman glanced at Jack as Tommy asked questions. I missed him every day," she admitted quietly. "There were times when I felt so alone, so uncertain. But I focused on Tommy, on survival, and somehow we made it through. I never stopped hoping that one day he would come back into our lives." Jack felt a lump in his throat. I never stopped thinking about you either. Every choice I made, I hoped it would lead us back together. I didn't know how to." He looked at her, his eyes full of sincerity. "But I want to now. I want to be part of your life, part of Tommy's life. I want a family." The woman stopped walking and turned to face him fully. She studied his eyes, searching for honesty, searching for the man she had once loved. After a long moment, she nodded slowly. "Jack, I believe you. I believe you want to try. That's enough for now. Let's take it slow, but yes, we can try. We can see what kind of family we can become." Tommy jumped up and down, laughing. "Yes, this is the best day ever. We're really together." His excitement was infectious, and Jack found himself smiling genuinely, a weight lifting from his shoulders. They continued to walk, the sun now high in the sky, warming their backs. Jack felt a mixture of nervousness and hope. There were so many questions still, so many things they hadn't said, so many stories to share. But for the first time, he felt that the impossible might actually be possible. They could rebuild, reconnect, and find a way to be a family again. As they walked past the shops, the townspeople noticed the unusual trio. Some paused to stare, curious about the man, the woman, and the boy walking together. But Jack didn't care. He had spent too many years worrying about appearances. Today was about truth, about healing, about the family that had been missing for so long. They stopped by a small cafe, and the woman suggested they sit for a moment to rest and talk. Jack agreed, and they found a quiet table near the window. Tommy sat between them, bouncing slightly in his seat, eager to hear stories from the past, eager to understand the lives his parents had lived separately. The woman began to share her experiences, how she had struggled to find work, how she had faced days of hunger and worry, and how she had raised Tommy alone. Jack listened in silence, absorbing every word, feeling the weight of her endurance and resilience. He realized that the woman he had loved was no longer the same person, and neither was he. Life had changed them both, but it had also given them strength. Jack then began to speak, telling her about the years he had spent building the ranch, the challenges he had faced, and the regrets he carried. His voice was filled with honesty, and he made no excuses. He simply shared his story, his mistakes, and his hopes for the future. For hours they talked. The past was heavy, but it was being acknowledged. The present was fragile, but it was full of possibility. And through it all, Tommy listened, asked questions, and offered small moments of encouragement that reminded them both why they were here, why they had been given a second chance. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting golden light across the town, Jack felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. It was fragile, delicate, and tentative, but it was real. And as they left the cafe, walking back toward the outskirts of the town, he knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, but it would be worth it. For the first time in many years, Jack, the woman he had loved, and their son were together. And that togetherness, however new and uncertain, was enough to light a spark of possibility, a spark that promised healing, forgiveness, and a chance at the family they had all longed for. The late afternoon sun painted the sky with shades of orange and pink as Jack, the woman, and Tommy made their way back to the ranch. The air smelled of fresh hay and the faint scent of the nearby river. Jack felt a strange mix of excitement and anxiety. His heart raced, not from riding his horse but from the thought of what lay ahead. This wasn't just a reunion, it was the start of rebuilding something fragile and precious, their family. The ranch spread out before them, vast and beautiful. Cattle grazed peacefully in the fields, and the barns stood tall and well kept. Jack's life had been full of work, routines, and the pursuit of success, but now he realized that nothing he had built mattered as much as the people he loved. He turned to the woman, watching her face as she took in the view. She had never been to the ranch before, and he wondered what she must be thinking. "It's big," she said softly, a hint of awe in her voice. "You really built all this on your own?" Her eyes reflected both surprise and admiration. Jack smiled faintly, his mind racing with memories of long days and endless work. "Yes, but it's not just mine. It belongs to all of us now if you'll have it." He hesitated, unsure how she would respond. She had endured so much. He didn't want to overwhelm her, but he wanted her to know that there was a place for her here. Tommy, noticing the small tension, grinned and ran ahead to open the gate. "Come on, Mom. This is going to be so much fun." His voice was full of enthusiasm, and it reminded Jack why this moment mattered more than anything else. The woman followed slowly, taking in every detail: the fences, the wide open fields, the barns, and the stables. She had lived a life of struggle, often in cramped or unsafe places, and the sheer space and security of the ranch made her heart ache with both relief and longing. She remembered the times she had dreamed of a better life, of stability for her and Tommy, and now it was almost within reach. Jack led them to the main house, a large yet welcoming building with warm wooden walls and big windows that reflected the golden light of the sunset. Inside, it smelled faintly of leather, wood, and fresh bread from the morning. Jack set down their belongings, and they all sat together in the living room. The air was quiet, save for the distant lowing of cattle and the faint sounds of the evening breeze. "I know it won't be easy," Jack said quietly, looking at both Tommy and the woman. "We have a lot to catch up on, a lot to understand. I want to do things right this time, even if it takes time, even if I make mistakes." His voice was honest, raw with emotion. The woman nodded, her hands folded neatly in her lap. "Jack, I don't expect perfection, I just want honesty, I want effort, and I want us to try together, for Tommy and for ourselves." Tommy jumped up, excitement written all over his face. "Then let's start tonight, can we, Dad? Can we play together? Can we do stuff as a family?" His eyes sparkled with anticipation, and for a moment Jack felt all his worries melt away. He laughed softly and ruffled Tommy's hair. "Yes, son, we can start tonight. We can try to do things together. But we'll also need patience. Life hasn't been easy and we'll need to take small steps." He looked at the woman and she smiled gently. "Do you want to help us start?" "I'd like that," she said, her voice warm, carrying a faint tremor of emotion. "I think it's time we stop thinking about what we lost and start thinking about what we can build." They spent the evening together in simple ways. Tommy showed his mother around the house, pointing out his favorite spots and the little things he had created while living on his own with her. Jack watched them, feeling a pang of guilt for the years lost, but also a growing hope that they could truly become a family. After dinner, they sat on the porch, watching the sun disappear behind the hills. The sky turned a deep shade of purple, and the first stars began to twinkle. The quiet night wrapped around them, making the world feel safe and still. Jack and the woman sat side by side, their hands brushing occasionally, and Tommy sat in front of them, leaning back comfortably as if this was where he had always belonged. Jack spoke first, his voice thoughtful. "I know I missed a lot of years and I can't get them back. But I want to be here now. I want to be part of your lives, part of Tommy's life. I don't know everything about being a parent or about rebuilding trust, but I want to learn. Can you help me?" The woman turned to him, her eyes shining. "Jack, I've waited a long time to hear that, and yes, I'll help you. We'll figure this out together, but you have to promise me one thing: you'll be honest with me. No hiding, no pretending. If we're going to start a family, it has to be real." "I promise," Jack said firmly. "I've learned my lessons. I won't hide anymore. I won't pretend. I want this to be real. I want us to be real." Tommy cheered softly, clapping his hands. "Yes, finally. This is going to be the best family ever." He jumped up, twirling under the starry sky, and for the first time, Jack allowed himself to smile fully, feeling the weight of his regrets lighten slightly. The woman laughed softly at Tommy's excitement, and Jack felt warmth spread through him. It was a simple moment, but it was perfect. For years, he had chased wealth, status, and success, thinking they would bring happiness. But now he realized that happiness was not in riches. It was in connection, in love, in family. Over the next few days, life at the ranch slowly began to change. The woman explored the fields, helping feed the cattle and learning about the routines Jack had built. She discovered that she had skills she had never realized, that she could handle the work of a ranch if given the chance. Jack watched her, amazed at her strength and resilience. Every day, she proved that she was not just surviving, she was thriving. Tommy was the glue that held them together. He showed them both how to laugh again, how to play, and how to enjoy simple moments. He ran through the fields with his father, rode alongside his mother, and reminded them that family wasn't just about history. It was about living together in the present. One evening, Jack took the woman aside, looking out over the rolling fields as the sun dipped below the horizon. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. "I've been carrying regret for so long, thinking about the time we lost. I thought maybe it was too late. But now, being with you, seeing Tommy, I feel like maybe it's not too late. Maybe we can still be what we were meant to be." The woman turned to him, her eyes full of understanding. "Jack, it's never too late to try. We can't undo the past, but we can create a future. And I want to do that. I want to see us as a family again, even if it takes time." Jack nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. "Time, yes, we have time, and we'll take it one step at a time." Days turned into weeks, and the routines of ranch life began to blend with the slow rebuilding of their family. They shared meals, helped with chores, and laughed together. Jack and the woman started to talk more openly, sharing memories of the past, fears of the present, and hopes for the future. They learned to rely on each other again, to trust again, and to appreciate the bond they shared with Tommy. One night, as the stars blanketed the sky, they sat together around a small fire outside the main house. The crackling flames reflected in their eyes, and the warmth of the fire mirrored the warmth growing in their hearts. Jack looked at the woman, and for the first time in years he felt complete. He knew the journey ahead would still have challenges. There would be moments of doubt, of fear, of struggle, but he also knew they would face them together. Tommy lay between them, half asleep but smiling, holding their hands loosely. "I think we're really a family now," he whispered. His voice was soft, but the words carried a truth that resonated deeply. Jack and the woman exchanged a glance, a silent agreement passing between them. Yes, they were a family, not perfect, not without scars, but together, and that was enough. The fire crackled and popped, sending sparks into the night sky, and Jack felt a sense of hope he had never known. The past had been difficult, full of pain and separation, but the present was bright with possibility. And in the quiet of the ranch under the stars, they began to imagine a future filled with love, forgiveness, and the promise of new beginnings. For the first time in a long while, Jack felt that he was exactly where he was meant to be, beside the woman he had loved, holding his son close, and walking into a future they would build together. It was not just a reunion. It was the start of healing, the start of trust, and the start of the family they had always dreamed of being. And as the night deepened, with the ranch quiet except for the soft sounds of nature, Jack silently made a promise to himself and to them both. He would never let this family slip away again. No matter the hardships, no matter the challenges, they would face them together, and they would emerge stronger, united, and full of hope. The first light of morning stretched across the ranch, painting the wide fields with soft gold and silver hues. Birds sang quietly from the trees, and the distant lowing of cattle added a calm rhythm to the new day. Jack awoke earlier than usual, as he often did, but today he felt different, lighter, as if a long-held weight had finally lifted. He sat on the edge of the bed, looking out the window at the vast land he had worked so hard to build. It was beautiful, yes, but what mattered most now wasn't the ranch or his wealth. It was the people in his life, the family he had rediscovered. Tommy's laughter drifted up from the kitchen, and Jack smiled, feeling warmth spread through his chest. The little boy had been thriving since their reunion, full of energy and excitement for life. And beside him, the woman, his past love, his son's mother, moved gracefully around the kitchen preparing breakfast. The sight of her, confident yet gentle, filled Jack with a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. She had endured so much, and yet here she was, smiling, nurturing, alive. Jack rose and stretched, feeling the cool morning air on his face as he stepped outside. The ranch was quiet, save for Tommy running between the barns and the paddocks, practicing his small chores with enthusiasm. Jack chuckled, watching his son. "Easy there, champ," he called. "Don't knock over the feed barrels." Tommy paused, grinning up at him. "Dad." "Look, I can do it. I can help just like you." He picked up a bucket with determination, his little arms struggling but strong. Jack walked over, putting a hand gently on his son's shoulder. "You're doing great, son. Just remember to take your time. Helping isn't a race." The woman appeared behind them, carrying a tray of warm bread and fresh fruit. "Breakfast is ready," she called. "Come eat before the sun gets too high." She smiled at Jack and Tommy, her warmth filling the morning air. Jack noticed how natural it felt to share this space with her, how the tension from past years had softened into comfort and trust. They sat down together at the wooden table outside, the cool breeze brushing against their faces. Jack poured tea for them, and they ate in quiet happiness, sharing simple conversation. Tommy chattered about the little adventures he had imagined for the day, checking the cattle, collecting eggs from the hens, and exploring the creek nearby. The woman laughed softly at his energy, and Jack couldn't help but smile as he watched them both. After breakfast, they decided to begin the day with a walk around the ranch. It was a way to reconnect, to share the land that had been Jack's life for so many years, and now to include the people he loved most. As they walked, Jack told stories about the ranch's history, how he had built it from nothing, the challenges he had faced, and the victories he had celebrated. The woman listened intently, her hand brushing occasionally against Jack's, a quiet gesture that spoke of trust and growing closeness. Tommy ran ahead, exploring a small grove of trees. He laughed as he climbed over a fallen log, his mother cheering him on. "Careful, Tommy," she called. "Watch your step." Jack watched her, admiration in his eyes. She was strong, resourceful, and kind. She had endured years of hardship and raised a son alone, yet she had come back into his life with grace and courage. He felt grateful, humbled, and determined to make the most of this second chance. As they reached the old barn, Jack stopped and looked around. The structure had always been a symbol of his hard work, but now it symbolized something more. It represented a future they could build together. "This barn has seen a lot of work," Jack said softly, "but it's also a place for new beginnings. I want us to be part of it, all of us." Together, the woman smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. "Jack, I think that's perfect. A place to create new memories, to build something together. Not just the barn, but us as a family." Her words were simple, yet they carried a profound truth that Jack felt deep in his heart. Tommy clapped his hands. Yes, let's do it, let's make it fun. We can have our own little projects here. He bounced with excitement, already imagining the adventures they would share. Jack laughed and ruffled his son's hair. I like that idea. Let's start today, little man. We'll work together. Over the next few hours, the three of them worked side by side. They cleaned the barn, moved hay, and even repaired a few broken fences. Jack taught Tommy how to handle the tools safely, while the woman showed him how to care for the animals. It was hard work, and the sun beat down on them, but there was laughter, encouragement, and an unmistakable sense of unity. Jack felt a satisfaction he had never known from wealth or success. This connection, this shared effort, was far more rewarding than any accomplishment he had achieved alone. As the afternoon sun began to wane, they took a break, sitting on the edge of the barn steps. Sweat glistened on their foreheads, their clothes were dusty, but their hearts were light. Jack looked at the woman, his eyes full of gratitude. I can't believe we're really doing this together. It feels right. More right than anything I've ever done before. She reached out, brushing her hand across his. Jack, it is right. And it will continue to be right as long as we keep trying. We'll have hard days, yes, but the good days, they will outweigh them. We just have to be patient with ourselves and with each other. Tommy yawned, stretching his small arms. I'm tired, he said softly, leaning against his mother, but I'm happy, I really am. Jack looked down at him, his chest swelling with love. Me too, son. Me too. He glanced at the woman, feeling a warmth and certainty that he hadn't felt in years. And you've been amazing through all of this. I don't know how I can ever thank you for coming back, for trusting me, for giving us this chance. She smiled, a small, contented smile. Jack, we're all giving this chance together. That's the difference. It's not just me, not just you, it's all three of us. We're learning, growing, and healing together. That's what matters. The evening air cooled as they finally headed toward the house, Tommy walking hand in hand with his mother, and Jack following closely behind. The sky turned a deep shade of purple, dotted with stars. The ranch looked serene in the soft light of twilight, the fields calm, the barn standing proudly. Jack felt a deep sense of peace. The years of pain, separation, and longing had not been easy, but they had led to this moment, a moment of hope, unity, and the possibility of a future filled with love. Inside the house, they prepared a simple dinner together. Laughter filled the kitchen as they chopped vegetables, stirred pots, and shared stories of the day. Tommy was full of energy, retelling little events from the morning, and making both adults laugh with his observations and jokes. Jack felt a joy he hadn't known in years, a happiness born not from wealth or success, but from the simple act of being together. After dinner, they gathered in the living room. Jack pulled out a photo album he had kept for years, filled with pictures of the ranch, cattle, and family moments he had imagined but never fully lived. He showed it to the woman and Tommy, pointing out the memories he had created alone but now hoped to recreate together. The woman's eyes softened as she looked through the album. These pictures, they tell a story, not just of your life, Jack, but of the life we can now have. Look at what we've built, and now we can build even more together. Jack nodded, feeling tears prick his eyes. Yes, together. He looked at Tommy, who was smiling widely. We have so many adventures ahead, so many days to make memories, and I promise I won't ever take this for granted again. Tommy hugged both of them tightly, his small arms connecting them. I love you both, he whispered. I'm so happy we're together. Jack and the woman exchanged a glance, their hearts full. I love you too, son, Jack said softly. And I love you, he added, turning to the woman. The night deepened, and they finally settled for bed, exhausted but happy. Jack looked out the window one last time before closing his eyes, watching the stars twinkle over the ranch. The past had been full of mistakes and missed opportunities, but the present and the future was theirs to shape. And as he drifted to sleep, Jack felt a sense of certainty that he hadn't felt in years. He had been given a second chance, not just to love, but to rebuild a family, to make amends, and to create a life filled with hope, connection, and happiness. In that quiet night, under the protective stars and the watchful hills, a rich cowboy, the woman he had loved, and their son had finally found their way back to each other. The past was a story of lessons learned, but the present was a promise that family, forgiveness, and love could triumph over years of separation and pain. And for the first time in a long time, they slept knowing that the journey ahead would be bright, full of joy, and shared together as a real family at last.